All right, what's up, Dumbledore's Army and Inquisitorial Squad, whichever side you prefer to be on. We've got another Harry Potter episode coming to you from Phantology with Dan and Nathan, and I am
guys.
Stephen, and we are pumped to bring you Order of the Phoenix.
So pumped.
Yeah.
So Order of the Phoenix, this is the longest book in the series by far, and it's a huge tone shift, I think, from the previous four. Well, I would say like maybe halfway through or towards the end of the fourth book, End of Goblet of Fire, we started to get into like these more adult themes a little bit, and we explore those quite a lot. In this book, I have a few comments to make about just like the divide between the wizards and the muggles and the adults and the kids, and how Harry and Co are transitioning here. And I think you see that in a few different ways. But like your guys' overall thoughts on the book before we get into the plot?
So for me personally, I did not like this book.
Whoa!
Like
I
it
felt
all?
like, it was
like
one of my
you didn't
least
like it, or
favorite
you
books.
you liked other Harry Potters better, or what's the deal?
It's like number 5 out of 7, the least favorite.
So it's
What's
still an
number 7
enjoyable
out of
book
7?
then.
Well, yeah.
What is the worst?
Number 7, my least favorite would probably be number 2.
Whoa!
I just felt like this book just dragged on.
I mean, it's long.
It is super long, and I just felt like there's some parts that weren't necessary to the plot that just were in there, and they didn't really add anything to Harry or to the other characters. They're just there to make the book longer.
Okay.
Yeah,
interesting
there
to see what
are-
those things are.
I agree. There are a lot of new characters that are thrown into this book, and some of them you think could end up being important down the line, but nothing ever really materializes with those characters, like a few of the Order of the Phoenix. The reason I agree with Nathan that it's not my favorite book, I see why it is essential for the plot development, but my biggest thing with the book is I'm frustrated the entire time because no one's telling Harry anything. And then I always expect there to be a really good reason for that, and I'm not satisfied with the reason at the end. And so those aspects of the book are a bit troublesome for me.
We can talk about this more when we get into it, but I think the reason why Harry doesn't get enough information, it's not a plot reason. It's more of I mean, there is a plot reason, but it's more of a thematic reason that J.K. Rowling is choosing to put in there to show the divide between the kids and the adults, kind of like what I was saying earlier. And Harry not being given this information shows that Dumbledore and Co are considering him a child when in reality they are kind of growing up. So I agree that it's frustrating to read, but I think there is a reason for it.
Well, yeah, there's a definitely reason behind Harry not knowing everything, but I just feel like to Harry, if Harry's the chosen one, he has to, and Dumbledore knows, and everyone knows that he has to fight Voldemort, then why isn't Dumbledore helping him along in this book? He just blatantly just ignores him through the majority of the book. And
he admits he admits that it's a mistake by the end in their final parting conversation.
Yeah,
but I guess go ahead, Nathan.
Well, just throughout like the beginning of the book, like the meeting of like meeting that they have, and Molly Weasley being that protective parent, I guess that mother figure, just not wanting Harry to know what's going on and different stuff like that. I just feel like at this point, Harry's fight, like he's beaten Voldemort, like he's to a degree, like he fought against Voldemort. I feel like he should know what's going on so he can prepare better.
What makes it confusing for me is the transition from the end of the fourth book, where we just left off, where Dumbledore was basically revealing everything, and it seemed like he had realized his mistake in sheltering Harry a little bit. And you got the feeling that Dumbledore accepted Harry as, well, not his equal, but that he was going to be part of this war currently and obviously in the future. And so that was what was disappointing, because all of a sudden we start the fifth book and everything is just shut off again, and even more so.
Yeah, that's a good point. The transition between fourth and fifth, and obviously Harry Potter would agree with your frustration, with your guys' frustrations here.
Yeah, I learned the term caps lock Harry. I don't know if you guys have heard that term before, but it's when Harry is when he just goes on full vent mode. Normally it's to Ron and Hermione, but pops up in other situations as well.
Does he get all caps in the text? It is, right? There's a few times.
Yeah, there's a few times where it gets all caps when he's getting mad he's just blatantly getting mad at Hermione and Ron he just gets mad at them for not telling him what's going on, why they're there, and like not writing letters to him. And I'm pretty sure it gets full caps there.
And there might be a moment later with Umbridge too. I think those are the two times.
So, and we'll talk about this more. I will say this book has, I think, the most laugh out loud moments for me.
Do tell.
Yeah, we'll let's get into it. Let's actually get into the plot, and I'll tell you when those times are. And it also has the single, like, stupid grin moment. The biggest moment for me when I was reading it, I got the stupid grin on my face because something was happening. Very, very triumphant and funny at the same time. And this happens to me sometimes when I'm reading something way into it. Can't stop smiling.
Is it Weasley is our king? Is that the moment?
That's the correct.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So it's an actual grin. It's not just a grin in your mind. You're by yourself. You're actually grinning.
I can't wipe the smile off my face as I'm reading what's happening.
Oh, that's good. You really immerse yourself.
Yeah, very, very small moment. There's a few moments like that in the Stormlight Archive as well for fans of that series where that happens. And it's always fun to get into it enough to the point where you're at the stupid grin moment.
Is it like the Unity part? Is that the part we're referring to?
No, Dan doesn't know. Dan doesn't know for listeners. He's trying to throw
know
out there. So before we start the plot, if you like Phantology books, check us out online at www.phantologybooks.com, on social media at Phantology Books. Join our Discord. Invites are everywhere on our social platforms and on our posts. And join there and let us know what you think, what books you'd like us to cover, what we missed, what theories you have, etc., etc. All walks of fantasy fandom are welcome there. And if you'd like to support Phantology, we have a Patreon with several different tiers and benefits that are worth checking out. We have a cool merch shop with some very unique designs. Some cool
you guys had some good stuff on there. I was checking this week.
Yeah, I actually just bought one of the shirts. It says Tolkien and Jordan and GRRM and Brando. It's like that type of style. That'll be here soon. I'll be wearing that in a future episode.
Looking forward to that. Based on how it looks on you, I might cop one.
Yeah, probably an easy choice. I think a lot of people will be into that. And then finally, worth mentioning is we have a partnership with Audible. If you're interested in starting a account there, check that out for a free trial book. So let's get into the plot now that I'm done plugging.
Let's do it.
Phantology. So Harry Potter once again spending another terrible summer at the Dursleys. He's hanging out in the bushes, in the flower bushes here, and trying to get a glance on what the news is. He gets in trouble here. He ends up like having this encounter with Dudley and his friends. Dudley's all buff now, and he likes boxing. And
I thought that was interesting.
Punching Harry.
He was just this super gluttonous kid that you kind of felt bad for, and now he's like full on delinquent status, like roughing it up with the neighborhood gangs.
I mean, he's 15. Dudley's a little bit older, or are they the same exact age?
I think they're the same age, aren't they?
Yeah, he's like late teens, so I think that's believable. Like he's kind of like always been the chubby kid and then he turns it into muscle, and he becomes like the star defensive end on the football team or something.
And oftentimes you see that with really privileged kids that never have any discipline.
Yeah, he starts to
they go trying to create their own structure, like their own groupings, like in gangs and stuff. I've heard this theory. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, Dudley, maybe not a gangbanger yet, but He's going down maybe a darker path.
I'm just using J.K. Rowling's words. She says it's a gang.
Anyway, Dudley is not as tough as he looks because he's going to be sicked. He's going to have some Dementors sicked on him. Dudley Demented, as the name of the chapter goes. And Harry is able to use magic to defend himself and his cousin, fight off the Dementors. But this is way bad because you're not allowed to use magic if you're Harry and you're 15 years old.
Magic in front of a Muggle.
Well, and he's also underage, so it's a bad thing regardless.
Yeah. Well, the main thing that he gets in trouble for is using it in front of a Muggle.
Sure. And for breaking the underage magical policy, so it's like a double foul here. And when he's not convicted, but he gets
when he's put on trial
right away. Yeah, he gets put on trial eventually. But initially, a bunch of owls come in and they swoop in with all these conflicting messages.
He gets expelled.
Yeah, the first one is like, you're expelled immediately, Harry. And then he gets some more that are like, Arthur and Dumbledore are trying to sort things out, stay where you are. And then eventually it's like, okay, just hang out here for a little bit, Harry. We're not going to tell you anything, but believe that people are helping you.
Yeah, my latest read, I never realized that he has to wait for 3 days. Like, they just leave him here without any counsel at the Dursleys, just in his room for 3 days. And then when they do show up with that whole squad of Order of the Phoenix, nobody really tries to, I mean, Tonks maybe tries to comfort him a little bit, but everyone else just like talks about him like he's not there. Like, oh yeah, he does look like James. And I don't know. There's no feeling at all towards Harry during this part about what he's going through.
Harry's super alone. He's super alone throughout the entire book, and you see that as all of the familiar things are kind of stripped out of his life. Like Dumbledore gets taken away on his own, out of his own volition, and then he eventually leaves the school. Hagrid is gone quite a bit. McGonagall, when she gets taken out towards the end. I mean, he always has his friends, but then he distances himself from them at the same time. Like he's super alone. He's obviously pretty depressed, and he's got some PTSD from the whole thing with Cedric. And honestly, like, I understand a little bit more why he's so moody, and it makes a lot of sense.
Well, why not send like a familiar face like Fred and George with the auras to get him out of the...
Fred and George are not qualified to do this. They did it illegally once, but they're not.
But yeah, but send Tonks and Mad-Eye Moody, who's... I mean, he's probably seen like once.
So he says, Lupin is there.
It says that he's immediately wary of Mad-Eye Moody because he doesn't even know the guy.
Yeah,
right.
Or he doesn't know Tonks. I mean, he only knows Lupin, and it's not like Lupin's talking to him.
He talks to him a little bit, and Tonks is like way cool and friendly. I'm okay with this.
Yeah, Tonks is really cool. She's really close in age to him. What's the thing that Tonks...
Sirius?
Oh, because you can't let Sirius leave Grimmauld Place.
Yeah, that's the whole thing with Sirius. He's been locked up in kind of the similar way that Harry has, and that's the parallel that is established throughout the book between both of them. They're both kind of in prisons in different ways.
Yeah.
So speaking of Tonks, I always wondered, because she can like change her appearance and whatnot. The word is escaping me right now. Anamorph.
No, she's a metamorphic.
That is
metamorphagist, something like that.
That's the word I'm looking for. I spent a long time pondering the extent of this power, and I learned on, I can't remember, it was Pottermore or something. I learned that you can change your gender and your appearance and your age. Seems like a really cool power, but it's a side note.
Yeah. Gender, a little ironic based off of Rowling's current social problems, but we're not going to go into that. Anyway,
let's not.
Let's not. So they are going to fly off to Grimmauld Place, which is a new setting for us. It's a fun setting. It's a house that doesn't even, it's like not on the map. No one can find it unless you're specifically told about it. And in order to get in, they hand Harry this piece of parchment that he reads, and then it appears to him, and he goes in, meets up with Sirius and his friends and everyone else. So finally he's like kind of home again. This is basically replacing like the trip to the burrow that he usually takes. But Harry's not happy this time. Like he's way upset, and he's still not being told anything. Sirius wants to tell him stuff about what's going on, but everyone else is sheltering him and just giving him like real vague hints.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when we get Caps Lock Harry.
Caps Lock Harry.
Yeah, that's the first time when he blows up on Harry, or when he blows up on Ron and Hermione for not writing him, and he looks at their hands, which have been pecked by Hedwig, because he's told Hedwig to keep on pecking at them until they respond to him, and he gets this like kind of perverse satisfaction of saying how they've been injured in this ploy.
Yeah, I thought it was funny how Fred and George have the extendable ears, trying to get into the meeting.
Yes, the extendable ears are fun. Fred and George have a lot of new fun things. They've used the 1,000 galleons from Harry's Triwizard Tournament winnings really well so far. They're like well on their way to establishing their side hustle. They've got a few products in like beta mode that they're ready to start using.
With human testing.
Yeah, right away.
Yeah, human testing throughout the book.
Yeah, wizards are not mindful of safe testing practices. There's no FDA there.
Whatever the acronym is for that. So this is kind of our first exposure to the Order of the Phoenix, the adult side of it. Well, I guess the adult side is the only side. And I'm not very impressed with the Order of the Phoenix, how it's run at the beginning, the organization. It seems like they have these meetings, and they're like top secret, but they're kind of old school because they're just in person. Like they're just meeting in this room. And really the only purpose of the meeting seems to assign the schedule for who's going to be the lookout for this thing that we don't know what's going on. And there are a few liaisons that are doing other undercover missions. And we get a lot of names thrown out. Like we know Kingsley Shacklebolt, he's respected. He works for the ministry and whatnot. We get a few other names, but I wanted to know more of the specific strengths and weaknesses of each of these individual witches and wizards, so that maybe they could come up in future battles and, whatever the guy Diggle, whatever his name, maybe he's defeated because he had a weakness in transfiguration, or because you get the idea when all the kids are going through Hogwarts that they're better at different classes, which makes sense. It's the same in the Muggle world. So I wanted to know a little bit more about these characters that are going to be part of Harry's life now.
Yeah, that'd be fun if we had some like wizarding stats on everyone. Like this guy's got 5 stars on transfiguration. This guy's
like
he's
a
only
baseball card
on
for the wizards.
Yeah,
just throw it on to the Chocolate Frogs cards, like on the back. You can have attributes and ratings and things, a short biography.
Yeah.
The Order is super reactive. They're not proactive at all about trying to stop Voldemort right now. They're just like guarding and waiting for them to do something so they can counterstroke. But it's disappointing that they have like zero plan of how to actually like chase these guys down and stop them, other than, let's protect Harry and get at something that we don't know. And Dumbledore is obviously not giving out enough information to anyone. And
it seems like, they try to recruit the Giants and the Dementors, but I think they all know that's not a super realistic goal. I think they try for the sake of it. But other than
Hagrid gets kind of close, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I just feel like I think it just all comes down to Dumbledore not telling them enough information for them to plan out a nice like attack or how to stop the Death Eaters and Voldemort. It's just
like, why did Dumbledore not tell everyone about the Horcruxes? I mean, I understand keeping Harry the Horcrux secret, but why not tell them that? I mean, maybe he doesn't know quite yet because he doesn't have the ring yet. He's still kind of exploring that whole vein. But maybe he could have involved everyone else in that as well.
I feel like Dumbledore knows because he knew about the diary, right? He's had to figure out since then.
He suspects. I don't think he has anything confirmed quite yet.
My theory is that in his leave of absence, when he gets sacked or whatever, that he spends that few weeks or month or something in his understanding of the Horcruxes develops quite a bit during that time.
So even though the Order is a little disappointing, Grimmauld Place is pretty cool. And Harry does allow himself to have a little bit of fun during some cleaning that has to happen at Grimmauld Place. We meet Creature, who is kind of darkly funny. Like, this is a real dark, demented house elf that's also kind of funny and lovable in his own way. Harry gets some background on Sirius. He learns about his family. I like the Black family tapestry. I think that's cool. It's funny. It's
yeah.
Sirius is blasted off the tapestry, and Harry really connects with Sirius even more because both of them are totally outsiders in the world that they want to be in. Like Harry Potter, so famous, he's the chosen one and everything, but at the same time he's so alone and can't relate to anyone. And Sirius is the same way, having been cast out of his family without all of his friends now. I mean, he's around them, but at the same time he's not. So I really like the parallels between Harry and Sirius. And that makes it all the more heartbreaking when Sirius dies at the end.
Yeah. I think the Black family tree is super interesting because, like, you have Tonks and
the Malfoys are on there, and the Lestranges. It's like the pure blood line.
They're all
you get like some incest vibes from the pure blood lines. Like everyone's related eventually.
Yeah.
The other thing they learn is that there's some kind of secret weapon that Voldemort is going for. And Sirius wants to tell Harry more, but everyone else shouts him down. And so that's all we know right now. And it's hard to like think back and say like, oh, what'd you think the secret weapon was? But in your reread, like, was it clear at all like what the secret weapon could have been? Was it just like super vague? I wasn't really satisfied with this whole secret weapon thing.
No, it wasn't clear at all.
Yeah, I just thought it was like some like Muggle weapon that I don't know that was enchanted somehow or something.
I mean, it's not supposed to be clear, but at the same time, the idea of Voldemort going after some kind of secret weapon seems kind of strange. Like, what more does Voldemort need? Like, what would the secret weapon even be?
Yeah,
I guess the Elder Wand. The Elder Wand becomes a bit of a secret weapon, but that's not till later.
I was thinking back to the Sorcerer's Stone that on my very first read back in 2003, whenever I thought that it was going to be something similar in power to that, but maybe like in a ring version. I don't know if that was around the time of Lord of the Rings, but that might have been in my mind.
Lord of the Rings movies, I'm assuming, since the books have been out since the...
Oh, have they?
Yeah, the books are kind of old, so that's not a new thing. So Harry is now put on trial. So he's got to go to the Ministry of Magic with Arthur Weasley. I think Sirius wants to go, but again is denied the privilege. This is cool to see the Ministry for the first time. It kind of
and it sets you up for everybody congregating back in the Ministry at the end. So you already know the basic setup.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. It wouldn't really work to have them show up at the end for the big fight because you'd be like, okay, the big fight is happening. It's also this new location, so we've got a lot of explaining to do. It'd just be like harder to write that all together. So it's nice to already have been introduced here, so then it can be reintroduced later real easily.
Yeah.
So when they get to the Ministry, they're told right away that the time has changed. The time of the hearing has changed, and they have to rush off, so they're late to the trial, which is embarrassing. And then Harry's kind of getting grilled. And then
wait, is it that embarrassing? Aren't they expecting him to show up late? Isn't that why they did it?
Yes.
Well, that's why, but it's embarrassing for Harry, and it looks bad.
Yeah. I don't think he's worried about being embarrassed at this point. I think he's just scared to death of getting expelled or like punished.
Well, I mean, like with think of like the levels of anxiety that you would have going into this trial, and then to be told also you're late, and everyone says already there, and this is going to look even worse on you.
It's the entire. How do you pronounce Wizengamot? Wizengamot. Yeah.
Or Wizengamot, something like that. Yeah. Everyone's there. It's a full. They're fully arraigned here, if that's the right word. And this is actually the same place where Harry saw Barty Crouch being tried in the Pensieve in the previous book. So it's weird that a simple case of underage magic would have this level of scrutiny placed upon it.
Yeah, yet another case of how in the world do ministry employees that are higher up have so much time to deal with stuff like this? Are there no other problems? Well, I guess there aren't if you ignore all the real problems.
And that's what they've chosen. That's what Crouch has chosen to do. And he's just pinning everything on Harry and Dumbledore.
Fudge. You mean Fudge?
Fudge.
Yeah, I mean Fudge. Crouch is dead.
See ya, Crouch.
Yeah, Crouch. Both Crouches are dead. Well, one of them's been Dementor kissed, but you know what I mean. Anyway, the trial happens. It's not going well, and Dumbledore shows up. Thank goodness. And you think, okay, Dumbledore's going to show up. He's going to give Harry a nice heart to heart. It's all going to be okay. But he doesn't even look at Harry at all, and he just comes in and just owns all of the Wizengamot and gets Harry off scot-free and then takes off. So it's like, what are you doing, Dumbledore? What is this?
I thought it was really funny when Dumbledore comes in and they asked him, like, hey, did you get the note saying that the trial was moved up? And Dumbledore was like, I did, but luckily I got here like 2 hours early. It's like, Dumbledore, what are you doing there for 2 hours?
Oh, interesting.
He's prepared, or maybe he's doing some snooping in the Department of Ministries, perhaps. Or Mysteries, Department of Mysteries, perhaps.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is
sitting there.
Even though he doesn't look at Harry, which is annoying again, I think this is, I mean, if Dumbledore hadn't shown up, then Harry's getting expelled, and we don't even get a fifth book. So it's a good thing that he showed up. I mean, he did a good job. He brought in a witness, which Harry probably didn't even know was possible. But then Dumbledore takes like a 500-page break from doing anything productive until he fights at the very end.
Yeah, he brings in Mrs. Fig. Mrs. Fig is a squib who's always been placed next to Harry. It's cool because it's someone that we've heard about in previous books, and then she's on camera and she's actually important to the plot. So that's some nice foreshadowing. Nice little twist there.
It makes you wish that in the doldrums of the summer, when Harry is wallowing in sorrow at Privet Drive, that maybe Mrs. Fig could have invited him over, and they could have said it was a punishment or something. Like they could have put forth this illusion that Mrs. Fig was really mad at Harry, and I think the Dursleys would have bought into that. And Mrs. Fig says, "Oh, Harry has to come and do chores for me," and then they're like partying it up. Like maybe not even partying, just having a regular conversation could have been a nice break.
Having some tea and crumpets or fish and chips or something like that.
Yeah. He does go over to her house several times when the Dursleys go on vacation.
That's true.
Oh, that is true.
That is a good point, actually.
Well, she could have said something. I don't know.
Well, but she could. I mean, on Dumbledore's orders, she could. She was the sleeper cell there, embedded in Privet Drive.
Yeah, going back to Dumbledore not looking at Harry for a little bit, I think we learn a lot about how much Voldemort hates Dumbledore, that mere eye contact can trigger Harry's scars so bad. But there's no restrictions like this at all for other people that Voldemort probably feels antagonistic towards. Like Voldemort knows Sirius from the First War. He knows probably other members of the Order, like the Weasleys. But Dumbledore can just look at that. Like Voldemort probably doesn't fear them at all, honestly. Like he does.
Right.
He doesn't think about them like he does Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Right. So it's probably the fear or the insecurity that's triggering this emotional response.
Well, I also feel like Dumbledore at this point is kind of either scared of Voldemort or doesn't know what's going on. And so I don't know. Throughout the book, I just get this feel like Dumbledore doesn't want to be close to Harry, and they kind of explain this because he doesn't want Voldemort to know what Dumbledore is doing.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're kind of ready to go off to Hogwarts, although before we do so, we get the big reveal of who the prefects are. In the 5th year, we get prefects.
Yeah, I love this part.
And so the letters come in, and the prefects are Hermione. No surprise. It's like you get one boy and one girl on each house that becomes the prefect. So Hermione, obvious shoo-in for prefect. So of the boy Gryffindors, you have Harry, obviously, Ron, Seamus, Dean, Neville. I mean, maybe like Seamus and Dean are never really under consideration, right? and
No.
Neville's certainly not. So
If
I
only-
guess between it seems like so obvious that it should be Harry, right? But it's not. It's Ron.
But if the prefects were awarded in the 6th year rather than the 5th, then I think Neville's a shoo-in. But that's not the case.
Going into 6th year, Neville stepped up his game enough?
I think so.
I feel like Neville stepped up his game enough in number 4.
I think it's still Harry. Harry's the most skilled wizard here. He's got to be the prefect.
I felt like it made sense why they wanted to relieve Harry of extra duties, though. That decision made total sense. Like, what does the prefect even do? Just make sure the rules are being upheld? Like, Harry has other more important things to worry about.
Yeah, I just feel like at this point, Harry's been left out all summer. That just goes to another point that everyone's just kind of just like, leave Harry alone. And Harry just feels alone.
We're just kind of rubbing Harry's nose in the dirt here by not awarding him prefect.
Yeah, that scene when they're on the train and then that awkward part where Ron and Hermione ditch him for the exclusive.
Yeah, that's rough.
The exclusive part of the train.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, I wonder what happens in the prefect. Is it really worth going to the prefect's cabin? Is it that much cooler?
I don't think it would, because then you have inner house rivalries that.
Well, they probably might to go get like instructions from someone or from the head boy and girl.
I doubt Ron wants to go there for any extended period of time if Draco's there.
Yeah, prefect cabin with Draco. That's rough. I mean, Harry probably would prefer to avoid that. I think it's annoying how much Harry wanted to be prefect. Like, seems like he's got a little bit of insecurities here. He's got this like this compulsion to be the best. I think it shows that he thinks he's better than Ron. Is basically what I'm getting out of this.
I like that.
I feel like he knows he's better than Ron. He's got
it. Kind of messed up. That's kind of messed up. He doesn't recognize that Ron has something to bring to the table as well.
But he doesn't. Ron doesn't add anything to the table.
But shouldn't you want to prop up your friends a little bit? Like, Harry should be happy that Ron is getting this opportunity. Maybe it'll inject some confidence into him.
Yeah. I think for me this is a big negative for Harry. I can understand a lot of the emotions going into moody Harry to caps lock Harry, but the prefect thing I think is an L. This is a big L for Harry. A big loss. Bad performance.
Because, yeah, it's just the status, too. I don't think it's any of the actual duties that Harry is envious of. It's all just he wants the recognition.
I don't think he wants the recognition. I just think that he wants to be included because he's been excluded all summer.
I don't know.
I think it's all about the badge.
Because it goes on throughout other books as well.
He wants to be the best. He wants to be the top Gryffindor boy. And Ron, poor little Ron, with no money and very little magical ability, is the prefect instead. And Harry doesn't like that.
But because Harry doesn't want the title, he just wants to be included in something because he doesn't. It goes on later to Harry rants several times that he doesn't want to be the chosen one.
Well, I think Harry does win some friend points back later when his friend Ron is going through his just totally embarrassing Quidditch struggles, and he offers to lend some help and tries to talk him up.
I mean, that's good. That's like an obvious thing that you should do.
He's going through a lot.
All right, so let's go off to Hogwarts. So on the Hogwarts Express, we talked about this. Ron and Hermione ditch him for their prefects, for their little exclusive club. And Harry hangs out with Ginny and Neville and this new person named Looney Lovegood, who's reading this weird Quibbler magazine upside down with spectoscopes on, or these, whatever those glasses are called. So Luna is such a cool character.
I know. I got to mention, well, you were talking about how there's a lot of funny parts. One of the hilariously savage parts is when she identifies Ron. Well, they're talking about the prefects. This is what it is. And they say Padma is the prefect for Ravenclaw. And Luna just says right away with no feeling or emotion, she says, "That's who you went to the Yule Ball with and she didn't have a good time."
Yeah. Like, thank you, Luna. Because, Harry and Ron. They were awful at the Yule Ball. I feel so bad for the Patel twins. Yeah, so we're meeting Luna, and this is kind of fun. This is a good intro because later on the Quibbler is going to be important, and Luna is an important character. And then when we get to Hogwarts, there are this new addition to the previous canon comes up when, rather than the characters being pulled by invisible horses, instead they're now visible and they're these like skeletal, kind of ugly flying things, and Harry doesn't know what they are. It's going to be revealed later, but they're called Thestrals.
These horse demons.
See them if someone has died in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you obviously know that they're going to play a role somewhere down the line in the book, but it was cool that it was something that you thought you understood from previous books, and then there's this new twist.
Yeah, this is good. She's done it. Rowling has done enough in the previous books to now make some of these twists, even though they're small things. They're fun to read about. When we get to Hogwarts, Hagrid's gone. We have Grubbly Plank back teaching care of magical creatures. Again.
Very underrated. Grubbly Plank, very competent teacher.
Very competent teacher, but like zero swag, right?
Yeah, just one of those teachers.
Is that a requisite?
Yeah, you have to be swaggy if you want to be a Hogwarts professor.
I'm recognizing a lot of teachers that are lacking in swag, like Professor Binns, just because he's a ghost.
He's super boring.
I agree with you on McGonagall, and I imagine Professor Vector has some.
Yeah, Professor Vector's probably got tons of swag. No swag in like Professor Sprout.
No, Professor Sprout does. She's cool. I like Professor Sprout.
Yeah, she's kind of low key, really cool.
Madam Hooch is really cool. Like Professor Snape in his own right, like he has his own thing going on. His own persona.
Flitwick's got a thing. He's a good teacher. Yeah, but Grubbly Plank is just so boring. We know like nothing about this professor.
All I'm trying to say is clearly Grubbly Plank is superior to Hagrid. That's what I was getting.
As far as actually teaching, yeah, there's no doubt there. Yeah. So in addition to Grubbly Plank, we have a new faculty member, one Dolores Umbridge, one of the most hated Hogwarts characters, even more so than Voldemort. I think big Hogwarts fans would say their #1 most hated character is in fact Umbridge.
Which makes her a really good villain.
Yeah, she's one of the best villains out of the series.
Yeah, Phantology did a best villains Twitter poll competition a couple months ago, and Umbridge was on the winning team. A top 3 villains. I don't remember what they all were, but Umbridge was on there.
I was reading something the other day preparing for this, and Stephen King said that Umbridge was one of the best villains that he's seen in literature.
Okay, Stephen King, someone who's written a lot of villains. A lot of villains. Well, it's just because the source of her villainy is, it's really unexpected. Well, both in her physical nature, starting with, like, you don't expect a grandmotherly character. And the movie, what I should say this, I'm going to interrupt my own thought. I haven't seen the movies in a really long time because I like the books a lot more. And I kind of forgot what the actress that plays Professor Umbridge looked like. And I realized, like, a few chapters into the Umbridge portion of the book that I was imagining Hillary Clinton kind of. That's a side note.
Okay.
And then I remembered, and then I saw a picture of the actress. And I remember how good of a job the actress does. I don't know her name, but it's cool because she dolls herself all up and she wears the cardigans. It talks a lot about the cardigans in the book. But then she's just ruthless. And you find out later that she sent the Dementors after Harry.
Yep.
So she's straight up evil.
I'll say one pushback on Umbridge being a great villain is I really like villains that are more dynamic, more gray, where you get their backstory a little bit. Like, you realize the reasons why they're doing what they're doing. They're not just straight up evil. Like, they got some good things about them. They're conflicted nature type things. But Umbridge is just straight up like a servant of the ministry and does everything they tell her to do, and is extensively ruthless, almost to the point where there's like never any redemption possible for her. And typically I prefer villains that I can like maybe get behind like at least a tiny bit and understand what they're doing.
So, do you guys know about her backstory?
I do not.
No, you know stuff from Pottermore?
It mirrors Voldemort's a little bit. I don't know where I know this from. I just know this, but it's not in the books. It's J.K. Rowling released it later. So she's a half-blood, and it's kind of similar. It's a self-loathing thing. Like, she resents the half side of her so much and tries to shun it. And it
Which
mentions
makes sense.
Yeah,
with all of her, like half creature things.
Yeah, because it mentions that she passed the legislation that was anti, is it werewolf or vampire or something?
Anti-werewolf.
Oh yeah, it was anti-werewolf because
Lupin knows. Lupin. Yeah.
So that's a little bit of her backstory, but we could use more for sure.
So and then also the Sorting Hat has a new song that it sings, inviting the students to maybe cautioning them against being too internally divided and wanting more unity in these trying times. I think it's a really, really relevant message, maybe something that should be sung on Twitter at the beginning of every day. Like, everyone's got to listen to these types of messages, but it's maybe like not super effective.
And some might say that Twitter does try to control everything that we consume, so it's possible that they could force us to listen to songs to compel our speech or something. I'm not gonna lie, I skip over all the songs, not only for Harry Potter but other fantasy books. Whenever they pop up, whenever there's like an italicized stanza of stuff, I always just skip over it.
Yeah,
that's a weakness of me.
yeah, that's a big weakness, because this is a solid song, so maybe you should go back and read this one. It's got some good stuff in it. So as the school year starts, all of Harry's classmates are once again wary of him, whispering about him behind his back. They've been reading the Daily Prophet stories all summer long. And again, the school is entirely against him. This is nothing new. Harry's once again shunned by everyone who should be his friends. So you always kind of feel bad for Harry as far as his status with his peers. Harry tries to ignore this, concentrate on studies, because they have to take their OWLs this year. 5th year is a big year. This is like the really tough year in grad school. This was my second semester in grad school, was the super hard one. We're preparing for the big exams at the end, and you don't really have much of a social life. So this is a big thing that they're working on. Classes are harder than usual. And unfortunately, in one of their classes in Defense Against the Dark Arts, which Umbridge is teaching, they're not learning anything, because the ministry is censoring their curriculum and not allowing them to actually do any magic. They just like learn about the theory, and then if they learn enough theory, they'll be able to do the magic. Great. And this is just a bunch of hogwash, and we don't like this, right?
Which,
Harry and Hermione?
You wish that they could find a balance, because in previous books you're a little frustrated that there doesn't seem to be any structure in the curriculum, and you're thinking of some classes that are ineffective. But then the ministry overcorrects basically and clamp down, and now there's too much structure. Well, I guess there's not too much structure, but it just basically sucks because they're not allowed to actually learn anything that they can use.
Yeah, and it gets to a point where another Harry moment where he just gets completely berserk against Umbridge.
Yeah, Harry loses it, and as a result gets detention. And this is a sadistic detention because he has to write, "I must not tell lies." And as he writes the lines, it appears in his hand, which is kind of maybe not cool, but it's a unique and it's a really nice strike against Umbridge as a villain.
Yeah.
And it links her to Voldemort too, because she is the only other person besides Voldemort that scarred him.
I like that.
Whoa. That was an aha moment for you two that I just shed some light on.
Quill. Yeah, but she also does it to other people as well.
I was just really stressed. I don't know if I don't empathize too much with hand pain, I guess. But I was way more concerned during the detention about Harry having his precious homework time taken away, because that is really emphasized in the beginning of year number 5, how hard the OWLs are going to be and how all of the workload is being ramped up by all the professors. And Harry and Ron seemingly are staying up till like past midnight every night in the common room, just trying to keep their head above water. So I'm like, man, Harry's struggling enough, and he's got to go to detention every night.
It's not Quidditch that he's missing.
Yeah, and missing Quidditch, and Angelina's on his case.
Yeah, Angelina's now in charge of Quidditch. There's tryouts for a new keeper since the legendary Oliver Wood has left, and Ronald Weasley becomes the keeper. So Ron's on the king. Yeah, Weasley is our king.
And what are the reasons why they give? Because the report that they give of the tryout is overall underwhelming, but it's something like they saw potential in him, but there were other people that flew a little bit better. I don't know. It was like his connection, or do you guys remember that?
Fred and George were on the team, and I feel it's like his potential that he could be as good as Fred and George.
So is it kind of like a backyard sports thing? Like when you have those twins on your team together, they like power each other up, and they're better?
Yeah, Sydney and Ashley Weber.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Dan.
Except for in this case, it works in the reverse, because Fred and George are just so ruthless that like Ron can't ever progress. Ron can't ever perform in their presence.
Yeah, Ron can never save a single ring when he is keeper for the majority of the season. We also get a brief glance at Hermione carrying on SPEW. This is a low point for Hermione that she just needs to kind of get past a little bit, because she doesn't understand that the house elves don't really want to be free, but she's still this like low-key cause person.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny when she left out the stuff in the common room, like the hats, whatever she made.
Right.
Dobby later explains that the house elves never want to clean the common room again.
And Dobby's just taking them all.
Ron, to his credit, challenges this. It's one of the only times when Ron says that Hermione's wrong and he's actually right. So props to him.
So the school year goes on, and Umbridge becomes the High Inquisitor, and she's slowly going to power up with more.
Can we talk about that Can we talk about the High Inquisitor name?
Okay.
Is that like, what is that name? Is that given to anyone? Like, if you look at the history of people that have been titled the Inquisitor, that I don't know what I have to say about that.
Well, so this kind of like links you to like the Spanish Inquisition,
right?
There's some Inquisitors in Wheel of Time that are these like religious zealots. There are Inquisitors in Joe Abercrombie's books. There are always these like super ruthless zealot type people.
They're Inquisitors in Star Wars as well that work for Darth Vader.
Okay. And so I think it fits Umbridge's character.
Right. Anyway, continue, Steven.
There's also a moment here where Ron gets a letter from Percy, another terrible character. I mean, not a terrible character, but a character making terrible decisions. Percy admonishes Ron to stay away from Harry Potter, who's dangerous. Percy's all in the ministry as well. He's gotten even more obnoxious. He was kind of trending this way in previous books, but this is really low for Percy.
Yeah. He also shows it during the trial as well, siding with the Minister of Magic.
Yeah, it's a new level of low. His letter that he writes is just so passive aggressive, and he's clearly trying to force Ron to pick sides.
So we go on, and rather than stick with this whole ridiculous Defense Against the Dark Arts thing, Hermione gets Harry to form their own group, the DA group, and she gets him to be the leader because he knows he's the best at Defense Against the Dark Arts. And so they have this low-key meeting at the Hog's Head, which is a terrible location to start your secret club. Like, this should have been, I don't know where this should have been, but it should not have been at the Hog's Head, because it's not too hard to spy on this. I think who's spying? I think it's Mundungus Fletcher.
It's Mundungus.
Yeah, Mundungus. So Mundungus knows about this. I guess none of the bad people know about the formation. So maybe it's not. Maybe I was overly negative on the formation of the DA group.
Yeah, I mean, it does come back to bite them a little bit with like the drunk guy or whoever that told Umbridge.
I'm trying to think of what you're talking about.
There's a person that told Umbridge that they all met together, and then a couple of weeks or days later, she passes the rule that students can't form together.
She outlaws groups right away.
Yeah. But there's someone that tells Umbridge that they all met. I forgot his name.
Right. I'm forgetting that little detail now.
Imagine if COVID was a thing when Umbridge was in power. She would be so pumped for COVID. She could just lock everything down.
That's a good point. So I liked the scene in the Hogshead a lot. I like it whenever there's a group of adolescents that are trying to form their own group or government together, and you get to see how the hierarchies kind of organically form. And an interesting thing that we find out is when Harry's telling his story that most people, just because they've gotten all their information from the Daily Prophet and he hasn't had any kind of platform to share his story or the extent of the things he's learned or his powers, that people are legitimately impressed by this. And it's Harry's first positive moment with other students besides Harry and Ron and Neville. I said Harry, Ron, Neville. I meant Hermione, Ron, and Neville.
Yeah.
And I just thought this was a really cool scene where you have different houses that are coming together. No Slytherins, obviously. They're none of them choose to join in.
Yeah,
you have
scumbags.
And of course you have Cho in there, which is a dynamic that's constantly present in Harry's mind as he presents himself to these other.
So maybe they listen to the Sorting Hat a little bit here in forming some unity, some inner house unity.
Yeah. And you also have Luna sticking up for Harry after other people question him.
Yeah, Luna's awesome. Luna's probably going to appear in my top 3 characters at the end of the podcast. So Harry's also trying to make contact with Sirius. This is kind of like an ongoing thing, but the owl mail is being inspected. All the fires are being patrolled. Harry tries to talk with Sirius for a bit, and then Umbridge's hand appears in the fire and tries to grab him. So slowly more and more things are being shut off from Harry. But the DA actually forms in the Room of Requirement, and this becomes Harry's outlet going forward. And the Room of Requirement is cool. I really like this idea that you can't really find it unless you have the need for it.
So I know that you guys have what's the Phantology contest right now? The top 3 artifacts.
Yeah, it's top 3 artifacts going on right now.
Is Room of Requirement considered an artifact? What's the size of an artifact?
Artifacts are super ambiguous. If you really wanted to push a Room of Requirement, it could maybe work, but I prefer more like a tangible object you can hold in your hands or something.
Because you guys did mention the Marauders map, which I thought was really cool.
An
invisibility cloak. There are a lot of cool magical items.
Deathly Hallows made it in. There's a lot of cool artifacts in Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So now we have the first Quidditch match. We start off against Slytherin this year, and they all wear these Weasley is our king badges, kind of like the Potter sucks badges.
Potter stinks. Potter stinks is funnier than Potter sucks. I don't know why.
Yeah, my bad. Potter stinks. Potter stinks. So this year the badges say Weasley is our king, and they're all mocking Ron. Ron performs terribly, but Harry bails him out by catching the snitch really fast. And then at the end of the match, there is some, so the teams are kind of getting into it a little bit. Some technical fouls are issued. There's some ejections, some fines come down, some suspensions even. And actually the suspensions are so bad that Harry is kicked off of the team by Umbridge for going after Malfoy. And George. Yeah, Harry and Fred and George. They're all off the team.
All off the team.
And it seems like Fred and George don't care that much. Like they know their future is not really in Quidditch. Probably a little bit sad that they don't get to finish off their storied careers.
Fred and George have so much swag in this book. Like they don't care at all about what happens this year at school because they know they've got it made with Weasley's Wizarding Wheezes. So they don't even have to try, and they have a real good time this year.
Yeah, they don't care about anything. The whole book, Hermione tries to stop them from testing stuff on students.
Yeah, Hermione's pitiful efforts to corral Fred and George.
They don't care. They set off, these torture Umbridge the whole book.
Yeah, I want to talk more Fred and George later when they really shine towards the end.
Ooh, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, this was some of my funniest parts in the whole series. So now Hagrid...
Wait. We have to talk more about the Weasley as our king and just the level of organization. Say what you want about the Slytherin house, but and they shut themselves off from the rest of... I feel like they're very elitist when they look at the other houses, but the level of organization that it took to not only make the badges, distribute the badges, have a coordinated theme song that everyone was able to chant at the same time. I can't see this level of coordination being executed successfully in the Gryffindor house. But
are you forgetting Dumbledore's army? Which is
that's not a Gryffindor. That's not Gryffindor. Like you get the idea that it's every single Slytherin. Or do you think there are some people that in Slytherin that have a heart and are sitting out of the song?
No, I think there's no reason to suspect that any Slytherin has a shred of goodness in them.
And then the impact of it is it's exponentially even better after Ron's terrible performances. And the momentum just builds in the Slytherin house. I think out of all the books, maybe the high point for the Slytherin.
Okay, so moving past Weasley's our king, on to Hagrid's triumphant, and not really triumphant, but Hagrid's return of sorts, and his tale for us about the giants. Maybe this is something that you guys thought could have been cut from the book?
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. I didn't want to learn about giants that have no relevance throughout the rest of the series.
Yeah, I didn't care about Grop. I breezed through. Hagrid's dialogue is hard enough to follow as it is because it's written in the Hagrid style. I really skimmed through that part.
I thought it was fun to at least see a different setting, and you get the giants are a new thing. Reminded me a little bit of the BFG when we're going around and fighting with Maneater and all those other ridiculous Roald Dahl giants. Maybe that's kind of what inspired this from Rolling a little bit, but I agree. It probably didn't need to be there, especially when the book's already so long.
Yeah, so something that just popped into my head, by the way, that's not in the book. I just realized Peter Pettigrew's not in this book at all. After being such a key character in the fourth book, he is maybe he did something to go down in Voldemort's trust circle. He's not in the final scene.
I don't know. Is he a good fighter? Do we think he's a good fighter?
No. There's no reason to think that he's good at magic.
He's good at exploding a bunch of
muggles. He exploded more than 10 people at once.
That exploding could have been pretty useful, I think, in the battle.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I don't think he's all that good, in casting spells and stuff like that.
I don't know, man. He could turn into a rat and be hidden somewhere, and then turn into Peter Pettigrew and pop up right behind you and explode you. I think it could have been useful.
I don't know. He was following James around the whole time he's at Hogwarts. He's James Potter, and he's probably in Sirius and Lupin was probably the only reason why Peter Pettigrew graduated, just because they were helping him out.
I think he's at least a competent wizard, but let's go on here a little bit. So Ginny's replacing Harry as the Seeker. And then we have the romantic moment where Harry kisses Cho under the mistletoe. So, points for Harry.
Let's go.
Someone's romantic advances are finally successful.
Yeah, except for she's crying the whole time. And she's thinking about the hot guy that she used to date that died.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate circumstance.
And then the date that they go on as well.
Yeah, should we just jump to the date?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, that date is so cringe, and it's
Valentine's shop thing.
It makes when they go to Hogsmeade, and it makes sense because they're young. It's young love, and it's the idea of it, and at least on Harry's side, there's probably a lot of physical attraction, and it's oh, I know that she likes Quidditch too, and that's something we have in common.
Thinks that Harry is attractive?
I don't think so. Is Harry supposed to be attractive?
He's got that like unruly hair a little bit.
And he's got to be fit for playing Quidditch, right?
What? How does playing Quidditch make you fit?
You have to be able to balance on the broom. Hold on.
Your wrists are really strong.
I don't know.
It's a core. It's a core sport. Your sport has to be strong so you can hold on to the broom and make all the maneuvers correctly.
Yeah, the maneuvers could be a little bit difficult. I agree with that. If you're doing some corkscrews or so anyway, Harry's looking at Cho, right? She's hot. She's into Quidditch. She's probably smart because she's in Ravenclaw. But then when they actually spend time together, they realize that they have nothing to talk about except for Quidditch for a few moments.
Well, it's just a really low moment from Harry while they're on the date and he brings up Hermione.
Yeah, get a clue.
I have to go talk with Hermione.
But also an overreaction from Cho. But you have to take into account this is the hot Hermione version we're talking about, like post shrunken teeth.
That's right.
So
that's right. Maybe So Nathan's probably gonna now clamor that Harry should have been with Hermione, and maybe this could have like been the beginning of that. So Harry shoots his shot a little bit with Cho. We didn't necessarily like it. Like, way to go, Harry, but at the same time, like, probably could have been executed more in the future as well. The date was super cringe. The relationship in general was cringe. And the plot picks up again with some Department of Ministry. I keep on saying Department of Ministry. Department of Mystery dreams. And Harry's like walking down these corridors, all these dusty glass spheres. He doesn't know what this means, but he gets this. I mean, later on we get the idea that Voldemort is obsessed with this. And then one of these visions, Harry is inhabiting Nagini's body, the body of this large snake, Voldemort's snake, and attacks Arthur Weasley. He wakes up and after like seeing Arthur like bleeding out and dying, and McGonagall takes him to Dumbledore right away. They're able to rally the portraits to rescue Arthur, and then everyone heads back to Grimmauld Place. So like right in the middle of the typical school action, all of a sudden we're interrupted and everyone just vacates Hogwarts because this has happened.
But you get the idea that it's right around the holiday break. Anyway,
it's around Christmas, yeah.
It's I was frustrated. Did you find it a little bit confusing why Harry was so convinced that he had actually somehow apparated to this location and then become the snake? Like, he was so convinced that he himself was the one. And I get it. Like, he was seeing through the eyes of the snake. So obviously there's something weird going on there. But I don't understand how, and Ron shook him and woke him up and stuff. But I was just frustrated. Like, Harry, man, it's obviously not you.
I don't know.
I just feel that magic could exist that would allow Harry to actually become the snake physically. Within Hogwarts, right, where apparating is not even possible. I think that's pointed out to him later. So he should have been able to piece that together.
As well as Ron assures him that it couldn't have been him because like he saw him having a fitful sleep for several minutes before he woke up.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Harry he doesn't know everything about magic, so he just feels like he might have been able to do that just based off knowing what Voldemort's capable of or hearing stories.
But once again, so much of this could have been avoided had Dumbledore sat Harry down early on in the year. And granted, they don't have to make eye contact or whatever, but he says, listen, we have reason to believe that Voldemort may have an insight to your mind. That's why I have to ignore you this year. Pay attention to that. And listen, we're going to start you on occlumency from the very beginning of the year so you can actually learn it. And also, we're going to make sure that your teacher doesn't hate you the whole time and gives you tactics and tips on how to perfect it besides just telling you to do it. We can get into that later.
Yeah. This is frustrating, right? And I think it's a lot of times in books, you just have the plot driven along by this misunderstanding and lack of communication. And that's kind of what this book is. This is a miscommunication plot, and it really kind of rubs people the wrong way sometimes, this type of plot, because it's just so frustrating. It's like, why don't they just talk to each other? If they just talk to each other like human beings, this could be solved. And sure, there's reasons not to, but there's also like lots of reasons why they could have.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%.
I didn't understand how Mr. Weasley survived. Like, why didn't Nagini just kill him? Why did he survive? Seemed like the only reason he survived was because this is still a kid's book and we can't have a snake killing the best friend, the father of your best friend. Like, that's too dark.
So actually, in the original book that J.K. Rowling wrote, he was supposed to die, and she changed it after.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
because she thought that was too dark, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was supposed to die by the snake.
I think he should have. It doesn't really make sense why he survived. I mean, I get that we don't want it to be this dark for kids, but at the same time, you gotta either make him die or make it a little bit different. So there's a reason why he survived.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just remembered because Mrs. Weasley has a part at Grimmauld Place where she encounters a boggart, and the boggart transforms into her loved ones that are dying. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if J.K. Rowling had written that in anticipating that would actually come to pass during this part, and then that got taken out. Well, I guess it does happen in the 7th book.
Sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of Arthur, we go to a new location now. This is St. Mungo's Hospital for Maladies and something. It's got a fun name. And
it's got some cool little J.K. Rowling throws in she injects a lot of humor into it, the different wings of the hospital and the different ailments that can happen in the wizarding world.
And Lockhart
it's kind of a humorous part.
Randomly, Lockhart is there having lost his memory. Shout out Tennant, where Lockhart is the villain. And
yeah, very versatile actor.
Yeah. Yeah. What's up, Kenneth Bra or something like that? Branagh?
I think so.
Yeah, anyway.
I think he's just in there to satisfy the people that maybe J.K. Rowling knew there'd be fans that always wondered of Lockhart's whereabouts, because he does nothing of consequence ever again.
Yeah.
Like, just so you know where he's at.
Yeah, little Easter egg for you. While they're at St. Mungo's, they use the extendable ears that Nathan talked about earlier to learn that there are some rumors, some talkings about in the order that Harry could be possessed by Voldemort, which lends even more credence to Harry's fear theory, whatever, that he could be taken over by Voldemort. So this is bad. We also see Neville and his parents, so we get some backstory there, which is going to be important. Neville becomes like the symbolism between Neville and Harry and the whole prophecy at the end and his parents and everything. Like, there's some nice parallels there as well that start to get established here.
Yeah. Also, a little bit later, Ginny and Harry have a heart-to-heart.
Yeah, we're setting up Ginny as a little more versatile character.
Yeah, Ginny's way good in this book. Yeah, continue.
After all of this, Dumbledore tells Harry that you have to take occlumency. Occlumency. Dumbledore tells Harry that he has to take occlumency lessons with Snape and protect his mind, but he doesn't really communicate this very well, like Dan was hoping that he would. And so Harry's like, okay, I'll do it, but he knows he's going to hate it. And
can I resume my rant on this?
No, you already did your rant.
Well, it's like, so I teach math. It's like me showing a kid a calculus problem and saying, do it. Just focus on it. Just do the math without that. It's so frustrating because Snape never gives Harry any hints besides what it's supposed to look like. He just says, clear your mind.
Yeah.
But presumably there are certain steps that one can consider when they're trying to clear their mind, other than, like, if I know that I want to do something really complicated, I need to have some kind of building blocks. All right, keep going.
Yeah, thanks for the rant, Dan. I think we all agree that the lessons here with Snape are tough and don't really make a ton of sense. Sirius gives Harry this package and says, hey, if you ever need to get a hold of me, use the package, use this thing. And this is so heartbreaking because if Harry hadn't made up his mind right here, right away, he's like, I'm not going to do this because it's going to put Sirius in danger and I just won't do it. And if he had ever considered using it, it would have saved the day entirely if he had used the magic mirror. Way disappointing and tough to swallow at the end when he pulls out the mirror.
Yeah.
Nathan, did you cry during that part?
I mean, it was a hard moment, but I mean, the mirror does play an effect in in book 7 for sure.
Yeah, that's true. The shard of the mirror that remains. So the lessons are going terribly. Harry can't focus his mind. His scar continues to burn every time Voldemort is experiencing big emotions. And one such emotion is this like triumph when there is a mass breakout at Azkaban. The Daily Prophet reports it as a bunch of wizards rallying around Sirius Black and escaping. And amongst these are Bellatrix Lestrange. And this is going to set up the ending of the book here with this big breakout.
You also have Ron's continued Quidditch foibles.
Yeah,
that's a thing throughout. Ron's not going to get much better at Quidditch until the very end. And then the other thing that happens is Umbridge, who's been observing more and more lessons, starts to really hone in on who she's going to fire. She really wants to fire someone. She's getting really power hungry, as if being High Inquisitor is not enough. And the rumors are swirling, and people are putting money down on if it will be Hagrid or Trelawney. And she's at every single lesson, so we're trying to figure this out. There's the Cho date disaster that we already talked about. And then the thing that really blows up the date is Harry running off to meet up with Hermione, who has Rita Skeeter, which is fun because we saw her previously. Now she's kind of in a different role. She's still a writer, but she's going to write for the Quibbler now and write this expose piece on Harry Potter, like Harry's story. And this is fun when it comes out the next day and everyone's reading it. And then Umbridge quickly throws out an order saying the Quibbler is banned entirely.
Yeah, and it does kind of restore your faith in the wizarding community that, hey, I might have misjudged all these wizards for just believing whatever the Daily Prophet said, for not believing that Voldemort had come back. But really all it was just a lack of information, because they get this fan mail as soon as the Quibbler article is released, and you have wizards from all over. Some of them still not believing, but some of them, despite the lack of credibility that the Quibbler has, some people are instantly believe that Voldemort is back. It makes sense, because if you were a wizard that had lived through the First War and knew about the extent of Voldemort's power and how easily he could gather an army, how he could like basically wreak havoc on the entire world, then I feel like you would err on the side of being like, all right, let's over prepare for this. Like, if it is true, like,
yeah,
it's feasible.
And there's so much weird information being circulated by the Daily Prophet that you think the intelligent wizards would start to kind of see through what's going on here a little bit, all this fake news. I mean, talk about relevance to today.
Yeah, it turns out when people only get exposed to certain things, then they start believing that.
A lot of these wizards went to, they went to Hogwarts, so they got to know who Dumbledore is. And so...
Yeah, you think there'd be a lot of loyalty to Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Throughout the intelligent wizard community.
I heard that they went to Hogwarts when he was the professor, the headmaster. I mean,
yeah.
I would feel like they would trust Dumbledore a whole lot more.
So Trelawney is fired. Umbridge chooses Trelawney to fire. Maybe it's good, but also it's kind of sad when she like throws her down the stairs and has her like all of her stuff packed up.
And she
and
says
the whole school is like watching this happen.
It is embarrassing, and she says that Hogwarts is her home. But I think not only should Trelawney have been sacked, but the entire divination course should just be scrapped. I think it's this weird like pseudoscience branch of the magical world. I don't see any evidence that any of the students in divination, surely not Harry and Ron, have learned anything or applied anything from the class. And they've been in it 3 years now.
So you side with Hermione, who just instantly the class is trash.
Yeah, you're a Hermione.
I think it's just something that you have to be born with. What's the thing called that Trelawney is born with that like runs in her family, and it's the reason why? Sight. I think it's just called sight.
She has the sight, yeah, something like that.
So if you don't have that, then don't waste time trying to learn to look in a crystal ball.
Maybe it's hard to determine. Yeah, it does seem like they could maybe get like more out of arithmancy rather than divination. Like that should be the required class.
And if so many established wizards have come through the ranks of Hogwarts, have taken divination, but none of them really seem to know what's going on in the future whatsoever. More so than any Muggle. Like, I don't see any evidence that any members of the Order of the Phoenix have used divination to tap into Voldemort's plans or anything.
Yeah, so divination is useless. Anyway, we'll see what's happening with the course. Going forward for now, we're going to have a centaur come in, which is going to please Umbridge a lot. Ferenz, is that his name? Ferenz? Yeah, so he's taking up residence. He's not going up to the tower, the divination tower. That's going to be hard for him to get all the way up there. So we're moving the class down to the ground floor. Trelawney can stick around because Dumbledore's vouching for her. And you realize, you learn why later on with the whole prophecy thing. The DA continues to meet, and people are showing some good improvement. It seems like this class is awesome, the Harry Potter class, until they're finally caught by Umbridge and the Slytherin squad, and Harry gets captured. They bring out the whole thing that everyone signed, and this is Dumbledore's army on it. And Umbridge is like, we got you, Harry Potter. And then Dumbledore comes in and says, actually, it was all my thing. I'm taking full responsibility. Look, it says right there, Dumbledore's army. You got me. And so he resigns, headmaster, and takes off. And they're going to take him in, like they're going to arrest him. And then he has a sweet Dumbledore moment and escapes. And I love the moment in the movie. This is a movie thing where Kingsley is there and he's like, man, you got to agree. Dumbledore's got some style.
Well, that's also in the book.
I don't think that exact line.
That line's not.
Well, not that exact line, but something like that is in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dumbledore's cool here. This is a good moment for Dumbledore. So he's still on everyone's side, even if his communication skills are not great.
What did you guys think of the Dumbledore's army? It really struck me on this recent reread how much skills they were actually able to learn. It was quite impressive, the level of growth. It made me think if they had had a good Defense Against the Dark Arts education from year one, how advanced they might have been able to be by this stage of their wizarding careers.
It does seem like these are the most useful spells to learn, and it's really a shame that they haven't had enough good education in this subject.
Yeah, I feel like the main purpose is, I mean, Neville. I really like Neville throughout Dumbledore's army. He learns a lot.
Yeah, everyone's leveling up here. It kind of stinks. Maybe the Slytherins should be further behind because they haven't gotten any of these spells. That would have been cool to kind of have a sense of that. Like, all the rest of the school is awesome now, but the Slytherins kind of stink at powerful magic now.
Yeah, and like Snape can't figure out why.
Well, isn't the first spell that they do Expelliarmus?
I think they start there.
And
then they're learning to stun each other. They're doing Patronuses by the end.
The really annoying kid that I'm pretty sure is only in this book, Zacharias Smith. That's always just challenging everything. He challenges that, and then Harry quickly says, like, I defeated the Dark Lord, or I neutralized a battle with the Dark Lord thanks to this spell, and it shuts him up.
I think every Harry Potter fan is with Zacharias Smith when they say, really, Expelliarmus is the spell you used against Voldemort?
Like, listen, man, I know that I've gone toe-to-toe with the Dark Lord, but here's the thing. I really only know 4 or 5 spells, so we can't jump to, like, the most impressive one right away.
Yeah.
Got to start with Expelliarmus.
So the reason why they were captured is because Cho's friend, Marietta, was the sneak in the Centaur and the sneak chapter, and she blabbed on the group. And as a result, she has pimples all over her face that spell out sneak. This is super savage by Hermione to put this into the, like, not just something temporary, like bad acne across your face that says sneak. That's rough, but I like it. I like the savagery here.
Yeah.
Doesn't she, like, she can't talk or something like that?
She's just so ashamed. She doesn't want anyone to see her face.
Oh, yeah. And then they ask her a bunch of questions.
And so as a result of this, we now form the Inquisitorial Squad, which is basically the Slytherin Goon Squad, and they get special privileges. Fred and George at this point are completely done with school. They're just total degaff on Hogwarts, and they're going to wreak havoc. And their first order of business here is the fireworks that they set off everywhere, all over the Great Hall. Umbridge can't control them. No one helps. No one helps her. This is good, but it's going to get even better from them going forward. There's some more.
Continue on.
Yeah, there's some more occlumency. Dang, occlumency. Occlumency. There's more occlumency with Snape. And this is an important plot point because Harry gets into Snape's pensieve and sees Sirius and James and Lupin being total jerks to Snape. This kind of destroys Harry's image of them because that was always like who he wanted to be. But he sees them bullying Snape really savagely. And then he sees like Lily coming in and trying to help, and Snape's even rude to her. This is a real dark moment for Harry. Like as if Harry couldn't be in a worse place. Now, you know, the idol that he's always built up to, his father, is now tainted by this memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, my thoughts about the pensieve is I really, really like this. And not because it humanizes Snape at all, because I don't think any amount of pensieve revelations can excuse the kind of crappy behavior that Snape exhibits year after year to people that are like 20 years younger than him. But what I like about it is it does change your idea of maybe anytime when you have a huge character twist like this and people who you thought might be good, like it challenges your preconceived notions. I really like that.
Yeah.
And we don't learn everything about James and Sirius and all the Marauders in this book, but you get the idea that more about their character will be revealed as the books go on. But this being your first real insight to James is really jarring because everything that you understand from other YA books leads you to believe that this person is going to be awesome. Like they died. Like normally people that die somewhat heroically, like you never find out anything bad about them.
Well, that and plus, isn't in the third book? In the third book they explain they played the prank on Snape.
That's true.
Yeah, they talk about that. Sirius tried to quote unquote prank Snape by almost killing him with the Whomping Willow trick.
Yeah, sending him in with the werewolf Lupin.
And it's something that Harry struggles with, like how much like James does he want to be? There's a couple of times where Sirius says like, well, your father would have taken these risks that you don't want me to take. And Harry's like, well, do I really want to be him then? Because it doesn't seem like responsible behavior. And so this is like the nail in the coffin, not the nail in the coffin, but this is another like bad piece of evidence towards James's legacy.
Yeah. And then immediately Harry freaks out and he wants to talk to Lupin and Sirius about his dad.
Yeah. Good lead in. So Harry now has this real strong desire. He's got to talk to Sirius about this because he just cannot rectify this. The only way he can do this is getting into Umbridge's fire and using the...
It's something to do with the flu powder.
Yeah.
It's
and
like
using
the flu
powder. Yeah. Using flu powder to stick his head into the fire and talk with Sirius. But to get in there, the only way he can do that is there's got to be some kind of distraction. And my guys, Fred and George.
Yeah, you know who's coming through.
Gonna provide. Yeah, they're down. They're always down for this. It's like this probably took zero effort on Harry's part to convince them to do this. So they turn some part. What part of the Hogwarts is this that they turn into a portable swamp?
I can't remember.
Like it's a specific like wing or something. Anyway, they unveil this new Weasley wizarding Wheeze, which is a portable swamp, and it distracts everyone. This is actually after there's some career advice from Harry and McGonagall. Umbridge is sitting in on this and continues to interrupt McGonagall and Harry as Harry says he wants to be an Auror. And this is fun because McGonagall like shuts up Umbridge a bit. Umbridge
she does that twice. Yeah.
Umbridge keeps on like trying to interrupt and being like, and McGonagall continues to ask her if she needs like a mint or something, or
not having it.
Yeah, McGonagall's definitely not having it. She doesn't deserve to get stunned at the end. That was kind of jarring for me that McGonagall would be taken out so easily. Anyway, Sirius. Anyway, Harry gets into the fire. He talks with Sirius. Sirius kind of reassures him a little bit. It's all right, but at least it kind of convinces Harry to continue on a little bit here. Fred and George finally had it. So they're gonna exit the school. So they summon their brooms. They tell Peeves to give Hogwarts hell, whatever. Like, enough of this, Umbridge. You know, Peeves, you're our new disciple. And Peeves salutes them as they fly off in the midst of. It's a really fun scene in the movie as well as the book, obviously. And so my guys, Fred and George, they're probably going to my top 3. This is an awesome book for them.
Yeah, they just fly off. A character that I would love to see in the movies that didn't make it, that was really good throughout all the books, was Peeves. I would have loved to see him in the movies.
I think he appears a little bit in the first couple movies.
There's a cool part about Peeves when also they're in the room of requirement practicing spells, and he's just doing annoying things, and they just have to disregard him. I wish there would have been more parts like that. Like, here's an aspect of living in a magical castle is there could just be an annoying poltergeist that you have no power whatsoever over.
There's another throwaway line later on too, where they talk about the havoc that Peeves is getting up to on Umbridge, and there's a line that says something like they could have sworn they heard McGonagall whisper out of the corner of her mouth to Peeves, like, "Hey, that chandelier loosens if you turn it the other way." Something like that.
Yeah.
So after this, we go to our final Quidditch match. So Gryffindor's still hanging in there, still got a chance. If only Ron can get things together. Harry and Hermione are taken out of the stands by Hagrid, who like really needs their help. Like, Hagrid, terrible timing, man. The game is on. But they agree to go with him. Hagrid has Grop.
The worst part of the book.
His half brother. Another thing, I guess we hate the Hagrid parts in general here. But he's trying to teach Grop English. He's trying to humanize him. It's like, Hagrid, enough, man. Like, this is not happening. And we get into it with the centaurs here, who are kind of on our side. Like, dude, Hagrid, stop. This is ridiculous. We don't want Grop in our forest. Anyway, after they come out of this, after being introduced to Grop, and Harry and Hermione are like, okay, what are we going to do about this thing? They come back into this boisterous singing of Weasley is our king. They're like, oh, great. Ron screwed it up. Everyone's singing it. This is so bad. But as they get closer, they realize the lyrics are a little bit different. And instead of the negative lyrics, they're positive lyrics. And the Gryffindors are singing. And Ron is saving everything. And they're carrying him on their backs. And Gryffindor has won the cup, and Ron has got it together.
And Steven is grinning like a fool.
Yeah, and I'm grinning like a fool as I read this. This is fantastic stuff. Man, this is so good, especially for Ron's character to like be able to turn it around here. Awesome.
Yeah, the first good moment for Ron since he was successful at Wizard Chess in year 1.
It's been a while since Ron has been highlighted. This is great for him.
The one thing I do wish is they wished, because like obviously they won the Quidditch Cup, but they didn't really explain what they had to do to win. I mean, like, did they have to win by a certain point total? Because like Ginny caught the snitch, but it's like,
yeah,
well, score.
Typically, that's always a thing, right? Like, that was a big thing in the Quidditch World Cup. It's been a big thing before. Like, Harry, you can't catch it until we have at least so many points. Yeah, so but in this case, they just kind of won.
So it's like, how many did he actually save? Did he just save everything? Like,
maybe not as important this go around. Like, the scores were a little more reasonable.
Yeah, I don't know. I just wish they explained that more. Just because, like, where was the chance for Ginny that she caught the snitch?
Shout out to Gryffindor House though for rallying around their boy Ron that they recognized had been belittled by the Slytherin house, and rather than propping up, obviously we've talked about this before, the Seeker is the only position that actually matters. So it should have really been Weasley as our queen, because the Quidditch Cup doesn't happen. Like, forget Ron, like Ginny had to catch the snitch.
Sure.
But yeah, props for them for recognizing that Ron was really a hot and cold player. And if they want to get some momentum going into the next year, if they want Ron entering it on a high, then you got to build his confidence right now.
Also, you got to take advantage of moments like this.
Also, shout out to Ginny, who realizes that Harry will probably be back next year on the Quidditch team. And openly willing to give back the secret.
Yeah, she's willing to adapt her game for the team.
Yeah, lots of sporting parallels right here. When an injured player goes down, someone steps up, but you know that player is coming back the following season. Jason Tatum rookie season, yielding to Kyrie Irving in the next year.
Shout out Brooklyn Nets. What are they going to do next year?
Oh yeah, Karis LeVert this year. Lots of times when that has happened.
Dude, is that a foreshadow that you are calling the Nets to win the championship next year?
I have problems with the Nets because I don't like Durant, but that's gonna be a side thing. Check out Tayshawn's Muscles podcast for stuff like that.
I do think that Steve Nash would be a cool actor in a Harry Potter movie or a fantasy book, any movie based on.
Just because he's had long hair before.
Yeah, and it looks like he's been through a lot. You know, it looks like
he has. He's had a lot of injuries in his career. Side story. Join our Discord if you want me to tell you about my Steve Nash fandom history. Anyway, we're going to our OWLs now. So from sporting to academics, the OWLs are starting. We start with astronomy, and the astronomy exam is one for the ages because during the exam, 2 teachers are attacked, and McGonagall, head of Gryffindor House and like de facto leader of the school, is stunned and seriously injured. This came out of nowhere. It's like, what the heck? McGonagall can't go down from some stunning spells, but she does. Hagrid escapes. This is a whole thing that Umbridge is trying to take Hagrid. She wants to take him quietly. She's trying to sack him, and she doesn't want another whole Trelawney thing, but it goes terribly. McGonagall tries to break it up. Anyway, the astronomy exam, that was something, and 2 of Harry's top supporters are now gone.
Yeah, the only 2 teachers left that will actually stand up and act out against Umbridge.
No faith in Professor Vector still.
No.
Mysterious Professor Vector. So next OWL is History of Magic. Harry falls asleep in this one. This is no surprise because this is his typical behavior for all History of Magic lessons. Maybe he's trying to like channel what's been successful for him in the past. But during this sleep, he sees another vision, and this time Sirius is being held captive and tortured by Voldemort. And this is when we get into the climax of the book. So Harry immediately believes what he's seeing because this has happened before with the snake. He's determined to save him. Hermione, our main girl, kind of talks him down and tells him like, hey, this could be a thing that Voldemort's trying to use you. She's obviously right, but Harry doesn't listen. He listens a little bit, at least. He agrees to use Umbridge's fire again to try to get some information to make sure that we're not doing anything too hasty. But this doesn't go very well this time. The Umbridge fire thing is now something that she's caught on to.
So are we going to talk about... So Creature earlier on in the book, Sirius obviously doesn't have a high opinion of Creature or maybe house elves in general, but it comes back to bite him. So actually, never mind. I was going to talk about Sirius's death more. Is it a good time to talk about it?
Well, briefly, I'll just say, compare Harry's treatment of Dobby and now Dobby's allegiance to him based off of Dobby's initial, antagonistic behavior towards Harry. Compare that to the way that Sirius treated Creature. Maybe if Sirius had been a little more accepting of his house elf, he could have got him on his side and this whole thing could have been avoided. There's a lot of small things that make Sirius's death really heartbreaking.
Yeah. I just feel like it's super heartbreaking that Creature portrayed Sirius like that. And I mean, the half elf is supposed to be loyal, and he just openly betrays Sirius.
Creature, can't trust him. Anyway, they're caught. They're caught in Umbridge's fire. This is kind of like our main guys, plus Ginny and Luna and Neville. Harry tries to get this message to Snape, and it's successful, but again, he doesn't trust Snape enough, or Snape doesn't communicate enough back to him. Snape's lip just kind of curls, and he says, like, oh, that doesn't mean anything to me, and in typical Snape fashion. There's a lot of things here. There's so many things that could have avoided this whole disaster, which makes it even, like, all the more compelling when it happens. I like the part where Hermione convinces Umbridge to follow them into the forest, and then the centaurs are there, and then Grop appears, and there's a whole disaster. I think the interesting thing here is the Centaurs initially say that Harry and Hermione are innocent because they're younger, but then in this moment they realize that they say, hey, these guys are no longer innocents, like they're just as culpable here. And this is a nice passing of, not a passing of the torch, but this is a nice moment where we see that
it's like a coming of age moment.
Yeah, it's a bit of a coming of age moment through what's happened before and previously. There's always been this divide in this book between adults and children, and now Harry and Co are seriously adults. The Centaurs see that. And so I think these themes are really good, and they're kind of buried in here. They're buried in some frustrating plot points, but this whole idea of children versus adults, and now they're no longer children, it's really good in the book.
Yeah, I thought it was a really cool friend moment with Harry and Hermione, that Harry clearly understood that Hermione had some plot. She had something up her sleeve, as Hermione often does, but Harry had no idea, and he's just mentally fatigued and drained and physically wasted too. So he has no choice but to follow Hermione, and her plan did have flaws, but I mean, I can't think of anything that could have been better. It seems like every time they go into the Forbidden Forest, they really get saved by some. Well, I'm just thinking of in book 2 when they get saved by the magic car when they're with Aragog. But it's really fortunate for them, and yeah, I agree. An awesome plan by Hermione.
And in the first book, when they're there and they see Voldemort drinking the blood of the unicorn, and they're saved by the centaur again. The centaurs are
true,
and yeah, this time they're not saved by the centaurs, but Grop comes in and busts things up enough where they run off, and then they hop on the Thestrals and they fly off to the Ministry of Magic,
which sounds like the most scary ride ever. Like imagine riding this invisible beast.
See. I mean, if you're Harry or Luna, it's all right, but
and it's not like wizards are immune from falling hundreds of feet to their death. Because, and I think it's Ron that talks, well, Ron, as soon as he dismounts, says never again or something like that. Yeah. But it says that when the Thestrals were stopping and going, because they have no idea what direction they're going to go, that they were sliding up and down their necks and just holding on for dear life.
Yeah, so that was super scary for everyone else besides Harry and Luna.
Luckily, we do survive for now, and we make it to the Ministry, which is like conveniently deserted, and they get in. They make it to the Department of Mysteries, and they're trying to find Sirius, but Sirius isn't there. But what is there is this mysterious glass spear that has Harry's name on it. So, of course, we're going to grab this. Great idea. And once we grab it, then all the Death Eaters show up. And Lucius Malfoy is there and says, hey, Harry, why don't you just hand that over here, along with all of my crew? And then we start fighting. And maybe just like your guys' thoughts here on kind of the final battle. There's a lot that goes down.
I mean, I'm surprised that the 15 and the 14-year-old Luna, or the 2 14-year-olds, Luna and Ginny, were able to hold off the Death Eaters until.
Yeah, but they've been in the DA for a while. You forgot about the DA.
Yeah, Nathan, don't underestimate the teachings of the DA.
Spells. The Death Eaters are throwing out Avada Kedavra and killing spells,
but those spells have to land.
Winning. They're not winning, but they are like holding their own a little bit.
Yeah,
they're buying time for the reinforcements.
Yeah.
The
reinforcements do arrive in the form of the Order of the Phoenix, and then we finally see some real high stakes wizarding battles. Like some cool magic is actually being slung around.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I really liked this passage for that. When the Death Eaters first show up, it's the second straight book when you have a large cluster of Death Eaters that outnumber underage wizards. Well, in the last book, they were only against Harry. And in this book, you're wondering, how in the world are they going to get out of this? But then just like knocking over stuff and creating distractions turns out to be enough to buy them some time. But yeah, when the Order of the Phoenix shows up, it's fireworks time. Like, get out of the way, amateurs, because
I really liked how the book did this, and I really liked the movie version as well. Just the scene where they all, like the Death Eaters, all have caught all the DA members, and Lucius is like, okay, Harry, we're gonna kill them all if you don't give it. And Sirius shows up and
I like how there's a bunch of like split scenes going on and like side one-on-one, 1-versus-2 battles, and we keep jumping back and forth, and there's these kind of conflicts.
There's a lot of different moments. Yeah, there's a lot of different moments here. It establishes Bellatrix as a big villain right away. She obviously kills Sirius. Dumbledore shows up a little bit late, right? Like he doesn't show up until it's too late to save Sirius. When he does show up, he corrals all of the Death Eaters, and it seems like they're going to win the day, even though several people have been taken out and Sirius has been killed. There's also this moment where Harry is chasing after Bellatrix, and he just like totally loses it and goes caps lock Harry and is throwing out unforgivable curses and cannot keep it together. I mean, sure, like stakes are high, but maybe it's like a little disappointing that as soon as this happens to Harry, he goes to the dark side right away and starts using the unforgivable curses. It's like if Luke Skywalker joined Darth Vader right away and started using, you know, the power of the Sith, the dark side. Harry immediately chooses to use the unforgivable curses.
I hadn't thought of it that way.
Well, he's got to think that Sirius is only what he considers to be true family, right?
Yeah, but he has no morals. Like, where's the moral high ground? You gotta draw the line somewhere.
At that point, if I was Harry, I would totally go berserk as well. I'd go after Bellatrix.
Maybe like too much ribbing from Zacharias Smith about Expelliarmus, and now he's like, okay, Crucio.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, he's like, guess what I'm going to teach you at the next DA meeting, Zacharias.
And apparently these spells are not actually unforgivable because Harry uses them and suffers zero punishment.
That is true. I think it's interesting how Harry reacts to the deaths, because it's not the first death that he's seen in cold blood. It's the first person that he actually cared about deeply, though. You kind of progress through the way that Harry views death. Like, it starts off with his parents, but obviously he wasn't a fully conscious being at that time, and he really couldn't process it. And then you go to Cedric, which, I mean, whatever. He was sad about it for a while, but he seems to have gotten over it because he's into Cho. That might have been a little mean, actually. But then it's somebody that he actually cares about. So Harry should be able to handle it a little bit more. Like, it's not something totally new to him. And I realize he's panicking because he thinks, is everything I love going to be taken away? But he still has a lot of things going, like a good support system. He should understand the overall picture and the overall battle. So I think it's a big overreaction.
I think it's a bad decision for him to use the unforgivable curses. But I understand him freaking out and losing it because of everything that's been set up with Sirius. Like, Sirius is really the only person that he can rely on as a father figure. Now he's been taken away. Dumbledore is being a jerk to him. And earlier in the battle, like, Hermione and Ron were both taken out. Their fates are kind of unknown right now. We didn't see them die on camera or anything. But there's so many emotions going on right now for Harry. I'm okay with him losing a little bit. I'm just disappointed that he couldn't draw the line.
Well, what's he going to use? Expelliarmus and have the wand fly away? Like, he's got to
stupefy. I don't know. Like, maybe this is on rolling. Maybe this is on rolling a little bit. Like, there should be more like positive, powerful spells that you could use against people.
I shouldn't be surprised by Harry's behavior, actually, because if you remember back to the third book, they have to restrain him from personally going after Sirius Black. So it's clear that he doesn't understand any difference. Like, his success against Voldemort has made him feel invincible. We've talked about his invincibility complex before. I'm just saying, like, it's not a smart thing to go after Bellatrix, clearly. But it's justified in feeling totally devastated.
So Dumbledore corrals the Death Eaters, then him and Voldemort fight. They had the cool duel. They used some magic that we haven't seen before that Harry could only dream of using. These are some really advanced wizards. This is like the forefront of magical technology that's being pushed out here. And ultimately, Voldemort and Bellatrix escape right as Fudge and the Ministry arrives, and Fudge sees Voldemort and finally opens his eyes a little bit to what's going on, hopefully. And then everyone takes off. Dumbledore has the post-book meeting with Harry that happens every time, and Dumbledore explains what's going on with the prophecy and that the secret power that Harry has is love. and he takes responsibility for the whole thing. He explains that Trelawney issued the prophecy, that he heard it back in the day, and it means that, you know, the one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord, blah blah, is either Harry or Neville, and that's based off of who Voldemort chose to attack. Anyway, there's a lot going on here towards the end, but what stuck with you guys?
So I probably missed this part where Voldemort kind of like possesses Harry, and he tells Voldemort tells Dumbledore to like kill Harry to kill.
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting, in that Harry was just so weak and vulnerable at that moment that Voldemort was able to do that. And then just the whole, I mean, I didn't like the end of this book. Just Dumbledore just explaining everything, why he didn't really talk and teach Harry in this book, why, like, I get the whole part of like why he has to stay at the Dursleys. Like, that part's understandable a little bit, but just the whole part of Dumbledore just like distancing himself throughout the book. And I mean, I didn't like that part whatsoever when he was talking to Harry.
We talked about how it was unsatisfying.
I would be so mad at Dumbledore if I was Harry.
Yeah, a few thoughts. So all of the other DA members, they seem to have gotten pretty damaged by the events in the Department of Mysteries, but it doesn't really touch on any of their recovery. Like, a lot of them faced a lot of dark things that they had not previously encountered, but then it's all about Harry after, and how he's feeling, and Dumbledore's chat with him. I was going to say something else and I forgot now.
I mean, it's always through Harry's eyes. Like, that's kind of, it's called Harry Potter. It's not Ron Weasley in the Order of the Phoenix. It's Harry Potter.
They all do go to the hospital. True. They're all at the hospital, and they do see Umbridge that Dumbledore saved.
True.
Yeah, Umbridge makes a return. McGonagall, Hagrid make a return. Harry at the very end has this kind of emotional moment with Sirius. He gets the mirror. He wants to see if maybe Sirius could come back as a ghost. He has this conversation with Luna about kind of death in general. And then he returns home to Vernon and Petunia for one more summer. There's a nice moment at the end where the Order kind of threatens them a little bit and says, like, we better hear from Harry. He better have a good summer with you guys.
Yeah.
But it's this really uneasy ending. You know, Voldemort is
right.
He's got some really powerful supporters. They've got some of them in Azkaban, but there's no reason to think that they're going to stay in Azkaban based off of what we saw in this book.
Yeah. And they got giants too.
The Mad-Eye Moody's like, I want to hear from Harry every three days.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty.
So the thought that I wanted to bring up, and it could be a little controversial, is so I'm rereading this, and my reread, I've had different thoughts than what I had when I was a teenager reading it. But I didn't think, looking forward to the next couple of years, I thought that Sirius's character arc pretty much had run its course. And I don't know, like, had he survived, I don't know what progression we see from him. And I think it was clear that why he was the choice for the person to die right here. What I'm trying to say, like, I'm sad about Sirius dying. I'm not as attached to him as other people that totally fanboy or fangirl over Sirius. I don't think he's that awesome. He has a lot of flaws, but I think that he showed a lot of like one-dimensionality that I don't think he would have added a lot to the books had he continued on in books 6 and 7.
So speaking of individual characters, I think we're a wrap for the book, and we end every Harry Potter episode with our top 3 and bottom 3 characters. We're going long on our recording, so let's each just
way long. It's
go
been
through.
A good time.
Yeah, it's been a good time, but in interest of time for our viewers here, let's just briefly go through and give us your top 3 and bottom 3. We'll start with top 3, but only like one brief thing about them. No monologues, just quick. So we'll go top 3, and let's start with Nathan.
Okay, so my top 3 would probably be number 1 would be Umbridge.
Top 3?
Yeah, number 1.
Okay.
Um, or you can put like / Ministry of Magic. I just feel like what they tried to do and what Umbridge tried to do was successful. I really liked her as a villain throughout the book.
Yeah, that's fair. And when we say top 3 and bottom 3, we're saying like people who performed the best, not the people that we liked the most.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, I really liked Harry in this book. He had his moments, yeah, but I mean, he's 15 years old. He's doing a whole lot. And number 3 would be Ron, even though I Ron throughout the series. He stepped up for the Quidditch team. He progressed as a character.
Nice.
Yeah.
You picked Ron for like 1 Quidditch save. Oh, look.
So Ron made it into Nathan's top 3. That's monumental. Okay, Dan, let's hear your top 3.
I have 3 girls. I have Hermione for giving relationship advice to Harry, for her idea to go to the Force, which you talked about, for her really gutsy confrontations with Umbridge, where she said that she had read the whole book and understood everything already. She brought up the Dumbledore's army idea from the beginning. She ended her family vacation to help Harry. She put the cool jinx on the paper. Her only downside is like the spew stuff, and she dissed Luna a couple times. I picked McGonagall for standing up to, for exhibiting quite a bit of swag and standing up to Umbridge, and for being a reliable professor, one of the only reliable adults. And I picked Ginny because Ginny becomes a really cool character in this book. She's a seeker. She dates Michael Corner for a little bit. She is the one to tell Harry that she's been possessed by Voldemort and like bring him back to reality for a little bit and tell him what it's like. She was a really independent, strong character that I liked a lot.
Yeah, Ginny with the big glow up in book 5. Okay, my top 3, I'm going to go. Number 1 is Harry, guys. I mean, this is a really good Harry book. There's a lot here in Harry. This is like the emotions of Harry Potter. Harry Potter and the Teenage Emotions is what maybe this book should have been called. But he does really well with everything he's dealing with. And in recapping this, like, I'm just amazed at how well he's able to handle things. Even though he has some real downer moments, he's got some real positive ones. And it's easy to choose the one who you're seeing everything through his eyes. It's Harry, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to say, yeah, Fred and George. It's Fred and George. I already kind of gushed over Fred and George, and they were hilarious. And their just ability to not care at all about school, but also be successful. What they were trying to do is awesome. Their confidence is very admirable. Number 3 is Hermione. Once again, Hermione is the adult in the room and has the plan and executes very well under pressure, even though she gets taken out in the last battle, which is a little disappointing. Okay, Nathan, let's hear your bottom 3. These are characters who did not perform well.
Bottom 3, number 1 would be Hagrid. Hagrid in this book was just, every chapter with Hagrid in it, I just skimmed through. It was just really boring.
Yeah, Hagrid was abysmal.
Number 2 would be Creature. Just his betrayal of Sirius at the end of the book, and just overall his behavior throughout the book. And then number 3 would be Dumbledore. Just the communication factor to Harry, and just not being there for Harry when he needs him to be.
Yeah, tough to swallow. Okay, Dan, your bottom 3.
I have 2 of mine are repeats from Nathan, Hagrid and Dumbledore. I can't decide who's number 1. Hagrid doesn't have a single good moment in this book. Dumbledore at least has some good moments. So Steven does not agree that Hagrid didn't have any good moments, but I'm not remembering.
No. I just think it's kind of rough. Like, we're really dissing on Hagrid. At least he was able to ward off the stunning spells maybe at the end. Is that a good moment?
That's his genetics. That's not anything he did.
Yeah. Okay. I'm searching.
Anyway, Dumbledore, he's the leader of everything that goes on. Like, everything is filtered through Dumbledore to Harry, and he is responsible for shutting everything off. So I thought that was a huge error from him. Snape, because as a teacher, I can just say that if you're given one-on-one lessons to someone, for an extended amount of time and they learn nothing, and in fact their skills decrease, then that is on you. You are a bad teacher and you failed. And it could have cost the entire magic world.
Does Snape really care that Sirius died, though? Questionable.
Was
probably
he
not
in the battle? No, he couldn't have been.
No. He's still undercover.
Yeah. He's the real sleeper cell. All right. My number 3. Well, I'll just throw out 3. I'm going to say the worst was clearly Marietta, the snake who blew up Dumbledore's army. Like, what the heck, girl? Maybe her.
That's a good one. Dang it.
Her and the combination of Cho. Cho, I mean, I can understand, but she was a
just
terrible
because she cries
girlfriend.
so much.
Yeah, just because she cried so much and was unable to.
She initiates the kiss, though.
Yeah, she was unable to. I mean, she had Harry Potter in the bag, and she was unable to seal the deal. So too bad for her. So those two, that's kind of his one. I'm going to say the entirety of the Order of the Phoenix, because you guys already said Dumbledore. The communication was rough. I think there is a reason for it, and it works for the book and drives the novel along, but it is tough. And then I'm going to say number 3 is going to be
drum roll.
Maybe there's
Steven's picking between a lot of people right now. A lot of good contenders.
I'll say, hey, I'm going to say Ron. I think, even though he had a good Weasley's Our King moment, the moment with Ron that always kind of was funny to me was the whole thing with the brains in the final battle. Like, I get that he got hit with this lunacy spell, but then he was unable to get it together and he got caught by this weird brain thing. Maybe I didn't like the brain is what I'm trying to say, but I thought that was a pathetic showing from him in the last battle. I guess Ron and Hermione, neither one of them could really help out too much.
Can't handle brains, can't handle spiders.
Yeah. I guess he can catch the quaffle every now and then, but that's about it. Okay, that's a wrap. Man, we went way long on this episode. Yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We are going to review the next 2 Harry Potter books as well. I think those will be shorter. This book was just so massive. It was over 800 pages long. So
yeah.
Tough to rein it in. If you like Phantology, check us out on social media at Phantology Books, on your internet browser at www.phantologybooks.com. Check out our merch store. Check out our Audible connection. If you're looking for cool merch, some kind of nerdy shirts, they're not just stuff that says Phantology. It's all kinds of fun stuff on the merch side. And then check out our Patreon tiers for some exclusive behind the scenes stuff, including some reactions to books that we finish. And you can be involved in the community more and join our Discord and let us know your thoughts and where you'd like us to go with the channel. So that's a wrap from me. Dan and Nathan signing off. Any final, Dan, you have some funny Harry Potter thing to say to close us out?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about trying to bring in the Room of Requirement into something right now. If I got nothing.
Hey, that's all right. Just give us a piece or something.
Well, I was just gonna say that.
Hey, something that I want to mention that I had right here was the Fox's sacrifice to save Dumbledore.
Yeah, but he's just going to be reborn.
Yeah, but it was still, still pretty cool that he showed up.
Okay, sure. So on that note, like a phoenix, we're out of here, right?
Steven, I'm going to cut what I said before and instead put this in. The good thing is that you don't need extendable ears to listen to the Phantology podcast, which I'm very grateful for.
Bada boom. All right, on that dad joke, we're out of here. See you guys.